Hi there, welcome to Gingerbread DIY. I'm Sarah. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I've made 5 brand new gingerbread DIYs. So if you want to see what I made and how I made it, stay tuned. For this first project, we're going to use some of this white fabric I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I bought a pattern off of Etsy. And I think it's called Old Annie's Primitives. I will link her Etsy down below, but I just followed the directions. Her pattern is super easy to follow, great directions with lots of extras. So if you want to make these particular gingerbread, um, men, definitely go support her Etsy, buy the pattern, and you won't have any problems following the directions. I decided to do this all by hand to keep it in that more primitive feeling. But you could definitely sew these with a sewing machine, or I suppose you could probably use some hot glue too. I'm not a huge fan of gluing fabric, but I know a lot of people have success with that. So I made up my own primitive coffee stain. And I can leave my little recipe down below if you'd like to use that same recipe. But all the primitive stains are pretty much the same. You're going to use some coffee, some water, and then add in some cinnamon and some extras. So once that was all dry, I'm just going to add some little eyes and buttons to my gingerbread men. I am just using some puff paint from the Dollar Tree. If you happen to find this puff paint at the Dollar Tree, it is a really great buy. I've been really happy with this puff paint, and I've had this particular one for a couple of years, and it's still working great. Just make sure you squeeze out a little bit at the very beginning onto a paper towel so that you get out all those air bubbles, so you don't have an air bubble while you're trying to put the eyeballs on your gingerbread men. Next, I had some fabric that I had pre-dyed with the coffee primitive dye stuff that I made. And I'm just going to tie a little scarf onto one and do a little bow tie on the other. You can decorate these however you want. I've added some rusty bells and safety pins to my gingerbread men. You'll see that here in a minute. And then I've added some little tags using some stamps and a bit of that white fabric that I had dyed with the primitive dye. Now I'm going to go in with this walnut stain. This is the the Tim Holtz Distress Ink in the color walnut, and I'm just rubbing that onto my gingerbread men to give them that extra grungy look. I think these turned out so cute. For our next DIY, I cut down a piece of wood I had on hand. This was actually part of a bunk bed that was my kids' a long time ago, and I will kind of try to leave the measurements down in the description box. And I'm also going to use one of these little wood pieces from the Dollar Tree DIY bird kit. Next, I gave the house a coat or two of the Waverly chalk paint in the color hazelnut. I like that for my gingerbread color. And then I just marked out some windows and doors on my house. And if you're not sure how that might look, definitely go onto Pinterest. You can find lots of inspiration for primitive houses there. Next, I got a little piece of quote unquote candy. This is like plastic candies that you can buy off of Amazon. Temu also carries them. So definitely check out both those places if you're interested in finding little plastic candy cabochons for your gingerbread decor. And now I am going to add some frosting, and I'm just using a white paint pen here. This is a paint pen that I picked up off of Temu. I was curious to see how it performed next to Posca paint pens. I still think Posca paint pens are the best paint pens out there, but this one does a pretty good job. It has a nice tip. The tip is a little more scratchy than the Posca paint pens, but it works pretty good, and the white paint is fairly opaque. Again, I don't think anything beats Posca for opaqueness. So if you're looking for a really good white paint pen, I suggest Posca every time. So but that's just my personal opinion. Anyhow, after I painted up my gingerbread house, I did go on to Pinterest and looked up some inspiration on how I kind of wanted to decorate this. But once everything was dry, I'm just going to take this little sanding finger sander here, and I am going to distress my gingerbread house. And I know it's like counterproductive to scratch off all the paint when you just painted it, but that's how you get that old primitive looking worn out piece. So gotta just do it. Next, I added this little black piece here is from the Dollar Tree. I painted it black and again sanded the edges. And then I'm going to add the primitive coffee stain to all of these pieces, and I'm going to add it to this base. The house, the gingerbread man, that is a wood gingerbread man from the Dollar Tree. They sell those at Christmas time. The little snowflake is also from the Dollar Tree, and then I'll add some of this primitive stain to that candy cabochon as well. So I'm just going to add this to all those pieces to make it super cute and distressed. Now I have assembled my house. I put the roof on, and now I'm going to add my house to my base. I'm just going to use hot glue here, but if you want this to be really stable, definitely use some wood glue here, and maybe even a screw or something to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm just going to add that little cabochon to the front, that little heart candy cabochon to the front of that snowflake. And then I'll add that to the top area of my house here. And then I did make a little willow tree out of beads and wire, and it turned out really cute, but it was actually a very involved process. So I decided not to show that here. If you're interested in seeing how I kind of created this, I would definitely be open to doing a tutorial. However, it is going to take a little bit longer than I had here today. So, but I think that this really turned out cute. I love the little gingerbread man here. All right, for our third DIY, we're going to use some of this air dry clay. I believe I picked this one up at Walmart for like $8 or something. And it's a good size block. I really like this one. I think it is by Sculpey, and yeah, it seems to work pretty good. I've not had any issues with it. So I'm going to pull a piece out. I'm going to work it a little bit in my hands. You don't want to work this too much because it will dry out the more you work it. But you definitely kind of want to get some of those air bubbles and stuff out. And then I'm just going to roll it out. And I rolled this out to about anywhere between 1/4 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch thick. And basically we are just going to make some cookies here. So we're going to make some faux cookies. I'm just using this little roller. This is actually a roller for polymer clay and clay items, but you can use any kind of a roller you have. And then I was so lucky. I went into my Goodwill one day and I found some of these little kits. They're like cookie cutters and a little rolling pin for like 99 cents. And I think there were 2 of them, so I picked them up. I'm going to use the little gingerbread man here to cut this out. If you don't have a gingerbread cookie cutter, you can always print something off of the internet and then use a X-Acto knife to trace around it. I did add a little texture by adding a little bit of that toothbrush mark, and then I let these dry thoroughly. Now I'm going to add some paint to the fronts of them, that same Waverly chalk paint in the color hazelnut, and I'm going to paint the fronts and the backs. Now when you paint these, there's little air bubbles and stuff, and once those kind of pop, you might see some white areas. I wouldn't worry about that because we were going to add that primitive stain over the top. I added some eyes and little buttons on each of my gingerbread men. Now I'm going to go in with a dry paintbrush and add some little red cheeks, just using some of the Tuscan red from Apple Barrel. And then I'll go in and add a little bit of frosting with my white Posca paint pen as well. That's so cute. Now I'm going to add the primitive coffee stain over the tops of these. I did the fronts and the backs of each of them, let them dry thoroughly. Now I'm going to add them to a jar. This is just a spaghetti sauce jar that I had. I've been kind of saving these and reusing them. And so I'm going to add my cookies to the jar here. And as you can see, I have that round piece of fabric that I coffee stained. And we're going to add that to the top of our jar. And I'm just going to wrap this with a little bit of red and white twine that I had in my stash. And of course, we have to make this look super festive and very cute. So I'm going to add some of this greenery that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. It is a little great bit of greenery that they had first time I saw it last year, Christmas time. I'm going to add some little berries. This is all stuff from the Dollar Tree. These little dark red berries and that frosted white berry, those were all from the Dollar Tree at Christmas time. And then I added some rusty bells and a little tag there that says fresh baked. And I think that this one is so cute. I love it. So today I am partnering with my sweet friend Jackie from Crafting in a Mimi's World. If you've never been over to her channel, definitely go check her out. But if you've been with me for a while, you know I've partnered with Jackie multiple times on gingerbread DIYs. She does awesome DIYs in general, but her gingerbread DIYs are to die for. If you're looking for more gingerbread inspiration, she has also created a video with 10 projects for you today, inspirational, and you're going to love it. So definitely go down to my description box, click on her link when you're done here, and tell her that Sarah sent you and I said hi. Okay, for this DIY, I went to the Dollar Tree and I picked up a number of different boxes in different sizes. And I just decided that I was just going to paint over the top. I was going to try and take the paper off, but it didn't really work out that way. So I painted kind of that tall middle one in the middle with that chalk paint from Hello Hobby in their Cafe Noir color. And now I wanted to do some red and green. Now, here is a little color theory for you guys. I know you didn't come to my channel for color theory, but you're going to get it anyway. So if you want to darken a color, you're going to add a little bit of its opposite color on the color wheel. So if I want to darken green or red, I'm going to add a little bit of green because it's right across from red on the color wheel. And that's going to darken it up and give this really nice dusky kind of red color. So there is a little tip for you if you're looking to darken up a color without adding black. Sometimes black can be a little overwhelming, but you know, I really love to add the opposite color on the color wheel to deepen or kind of mute a color a little bit. So I painted this larger box in this red color, and then I'm going to do the same with the green, adding a little bit of red to deepen it and make it more of a darker, flatter green color so it's not so bright, kind of dulls it down a little bit for the smaller box. And you know, I ended up adding 2 coats of paint to all of these boxes, and that was enough to cover up all of the words and everything on these boxes. And the only thing I did was kind of that box that I was just working on there, it had a little bit of glitter on the top, so I just sanded that off with that little finger sander, and it worked out good. You know, they're primitive little boxes, so I wasn't too concerned if they were kind of wonky looking after they dried, but they really weren't because there's like a nice plastic coating over the tops of these boxes. So they ended up not like buckling or anything, and they turned out great. You'll have to let me know what you think though. So this next step I did to each of the boxes. I'm going to add a little bit of the apple barrel jet black paint to my plate here, and I'm going to dip my finger in it, kind of, you know, get some of it off a little bit, and then I'm going to run my finger around the base of each of the boxes And then I'll just kind of smudge the middle of the boxes too. And, you know, I mean, if you want to use a dry brush for this, you can do it that way. However is most comfortable for you and what kind of look you like the best definitely is what you should do. That's kind of the beautiful thing about crafting is that, you know, I'm here to give you some inspiration and, you know, then you just kind of do it how you like to do it and make it your own. I love that about crafting and sharing ideas. So here's kind of a look at each of the boxes in their colors. I really like how these turned out. So I used some of that white fabric that I dyed with the coffee grunge stuff. And then I added grandma's um, gingerbread cookies on it with just regular stamps. These little letter stamps, I think I picked most of them up at garage sales. You can find them all over the place, but Michael's has them. Pretty much anywhere that they sell stamps, you can buy those. And I'm sure if you look on Amazon or Temu or any of those places, you can buy them there as well. And then I like to use some sort of a permanent ink to ink up my letters. So I use the Tuxedo Black ink, and I will link that down below if you're interested in that one. It's a really easy ink to get a hold of, and it does dry permanently so that when you get it wet with water, it won't smudge or smear, which is nice. So if you're going to use Mod Podge or something over the top, it won't smear it. And then as you can see, I added some little gingerbread men and a little heart there. And the gingerbread men I just traced out with that cutter that I used before. But again, if you don't have a cutter, you can always go online and print out or copy a gingerbread man or just make your own. And then I'll just add a little bit of fabric to the top box for decoration here. And as a final touch, I'm going to go in with that walnut stain from Tim Holtz Distress Ink and a little dauber there. And that completes this project. I think these are so great and turned out too cute. For our last DIY, I'm going to start out with one of these Dollar Tree tins, and I gave it a coat of spray paint. Now, I thought I was doing black when I first grabbed the spray paint, but once I started spraying it, I realized that it is not black, it's slate. But it doesn't really matter as long as it's just kind of a dark color underneath. The red, you're going to be fine, and you'll probably definitely want to spray paint it with something, especially some sort of a primer or a spray paint. That way, your chalk paint will stick to it really well and hopefully stay on a little bit better. Now, I'm just taking a baby wipe and distressing some of these places. I want this to look like the paint has kind of worn off in places, you know, that primitive, grungy look. So, we're going to just take our baby wipe and distress this pan as much as you want. So you can go really, really super distressed with it or just a little bit, however you like. Now I'm going to take one of these plastic candy canes from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to add some fabric to it to make this look more primitive and we'll go with our project a little bit better. So again, I just used some of that coffee stain, primitive stain stuff. I don't know what you call it, primitive stain, um, to do the fabric so that it is coffee stained, looks old. And then I'm just going to wrap the candy cane up, and that's just super easy. Make sure that some of those edges are kind of showing a little bit so that you can kind of pull out some of those bits and pieces, make it look really grungy and old and like it's been around for 100 years or 200 years, however long. But you know, just however you want to do it, just kind of wrapped it up and then added some hot glue to get it completely covered. All right, so I'm going to take 2 of these sprigs of that Dollar Tree greenery. If you find this at your Dollar Tree this year, definitely grab it. I think that these are really actually nice. They don't look totally fake like some of the Dollar Tree stuff. I mean, obviously it's still looks fake, but it's a little more realistic than some of those other ones that we've seen at the Dollar Tree. So I was actually really impressed with this greenery from the Dollar Tree this last year. So it's something to keep an eye open for this year if you're looking for some decent greenery picks. So I just grabbed 2 of them out. I'm going to add a little bit of fabric here to the bottom just to kind of keep those pokey ends less pokey. That way, if somebody comes by and puts their hand on it or whatever, they're not going to poke themselves. And it just finishes it up a little bit. And again, I'm just using a little scrap of that fabric that I had dyed. I just dyed a whole bunch of that fabric and then I just kind of been tearing off pieces and using that here and there. So I've just been using that up. So that's what that is right there. And I just left a little piece hanging out of the top. And that's one thing I love about Primitive is like it's simple and it's like I just love that simplicity and that grunginess. Like you don't have to be perfect. If it looks more simple, it looks more like handmade, the better. And that's what I kind of love um, about Primitive is like I want my handmade items to look like handmade. I don't want it to look like I bought it from a store necessarily. And I just really adore that about that Primitive look. And I think that that's why I've been so into it lately is because I just really enjoy that I can create something. And if I make a mistake, it just adds to the charm of the piece. So I'm going to tie one of those little gingerbread men to our pan here with the greenery behind him and that candy cane. And then I'll just add some little berries and keep decorating him up until I'm happy with it. So this is how it turned out. I love this one so much. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. Definitely leave me a comment down below. Let me know which project was your favorite. Go check out Jackie's video for more gingerbread inspiration. You're going to love it. And I hope you have a happy, healthy, and blessed day. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye.